The mountains were silent, covered in white snow. The night sky was clear, but then a strange light broke the calm. It was not a star, not a shooting flame, but something brighter, something alive. It fell from the sky like fire, cutting through the clouds, and crashed into the frozen valley. The sound echoed like thunder, shaking the ground. Villagers far away heard it, but no one dared to leave their homes. They whispered to each other that maybe it was a spirit or a curse. Only the mountain kept the truth hidden. From the broken metal gate that lay in the snow, a girl crawled out. Her skin glowed faintly, her hair purple and tangled with ice. She was young, thin, and her body shook with the cold. Her silver clothes were torn, ripped by fire and snow. Her breath came in gasps, every inhale like knives in her chest. She pressed her hands to the snow, leaving blue stains, not red. Her blood was not human, and her eyes shone like faint stars. She was not from here. She was not from this world. The girl fell again and again, but forced herself up. She needed warmth, she needed fire. Her hands gathered broken cloth, dry wood, anything she could find. She made a small fire, her fingers trembling. The flames were weak, but they saved her for a moment. She pulled pieces of her silver clothes and fed them into the fire. Every time she burned apart, she looked at it with pain. It was all she had left from her people, yet she gave it to the fire, because without it, she would freeze. The snow fell heavier. The wind howled like wolves. She whispered to the flames, her voice in a strange language. The words were soft, like a song, like a prayer. Her tears fell on the snow, freezing before they touched the ground. She thought of her home, of her family, of burning cities and broken skies, but those memories only made the cold sharper. She hugged herself tight, shivering. Her body was strong, but not made for this world. The cold wanted to take her. Not far away, a human man was walking. He was a hunter, carrying his old rifle on his shoulder. He saw the strange light earlier, and his heart told him to look. He had lived many years in the mountains, alone. He was not afraid of wolves or storms, but what he saw now made him stop. In the distance, he saw the fire, and beside it a figure. At first, he thought it was a ghost, a spirit sitting in the snow. The flames lit her face, her glowing skin, her strange hair. She looked too beautiful, too unreal to be from this world. The man hid behind the rocks, watching. He saw her weak arms, her shaking body. He saw her burn her own clothes to keep alive, and something in his heart twisted. She was suffering, but she was fighting to live. He wanted to walk away, to leave her, but his feet did not move. His eyes stayed on her. Something told him she was not only lost, but hunted. The girl raised her head, her glowing eyes scanning the snow. She felt him before she saw him. Her kind could always feel when eyes were watching. Her gaze locked on the human man hiding behind the rocks. The fire reflected in her eyes, making them burn like amber. For a moment, time froze. The man felt a shiver crawl up his spine. He wanted to run, but her look held him. She was alive, she was desperate, and she was dangerous. The fire cracked, the snow fell, the wind screamed. The human and the alien stared at each other across the frozen valley. Neither moved, neither spoke, but both knew their lives were about to change. The mountains had kept many secrets, but this secret was different. It had a face, it had a name he did not know yet, and it was sitting in the snow, waiting for the cold to kill her, or for a human to save her. That night was the first night of 3 freezing nights. Nights that would test her will, test his heart, and test what it truly meant to be human. She did not know if he would help. He did not know if she could be trusted. But their story had already begun, and the mountains would remember it forever. The second night was colder than the first. Snow covered the broken metal gate, hiding it from the world. The girl sat near her dying fire, holding the last piece of cloth in her hands. Her silver clothes were gone, fed to the flames. Her skin was pale now, covered with frost. Her body trembled with weakness, but she did not close her eyes. She knew if she slept, the cold would take her. She whispered strange words, not prayers this time, but memories. Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to speak. Speaking kept her alive. Her stomach twisted with hunger. She had eaten nothing since she fell from the sky. She scooped snow into her mouth, hoping it would calm the fire in her belly. But snow gave no life, only more cold. Her hands shook as she tried to dig in the ground for roots, but the earth was hard, frozen like stone. Her tears froze before they reached her lips. She closed her eyes and saw her family again, their faces fading, their voices calling. Her homeworld was gone. She had run through fire to escape. Now she faced ice that wanted her dead. Far above, the human man still watched. He had returned after leaving the valley, but he could not stay away. He told himself he was foolish, yet his feet brought him back. From the shadows he saw her pain. He saw her press her arms around her empty stomach. He saw her eyes close, then open with stubborn fire. She wanted to live more than anything, but he also saw her weakness. If he left her alone, she would not see the morning. He held his rifle tighter, thinking his world had no place for creatures like her. Yee. Yet his heart refused to walk away. That night the wolves came. Their yellow eyes glowed in the darkness, circling the valley. They smelled weakness. They smelled fear. The girl rose slowly, her body swaying. Her lips moved, her hands glowed faintly. Strange energy sparked at her fingertips. She raised her arms, and light burst from her palms. The wolves stopped, their growls low. The light struck the snow, hissing like fire. The beasts stepped back, but not far. The girl fell to her knees, the light fading. She had used too much strength, and her body shook violently. Her vision blurred, the wolves closed in. A gunshot cracked across the valley, the sound echoed like thunder. One wolf fell, the others scattered into the trees. The human man stepped out of the shadows, rifle smoking. His boots crunched in the snow as he walked toward her. His face was cold, hard, but his eyes betrayed him. They showed fear, confusion, and something else. Pity. The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes wide. She tried to stand, but her legs failed. She fell into the snow, her breath shallow, her lips moved, but no human words came. She whispered her language, soft and broken. Then her body gave in, and she collapsed unconscious. The man stood still, the wind blowing snow against his coat. He looked at her lying there, glowing faintly in the firelight. He could leave her, he told himself. He could walk away and let the cold finish what the wolves began. But his heart fought against his mind. He saw her thin arms, her frostbitten skin. He thought of the fire she had made with her own clothes. He thought of the look in her eyes when she saw him. It was not anger, not hate, but pleading. She wanted to live, and she wanted someone to see her. The man cursed under his breath. Then he lowered his rifle. He bent down, his strong arms lifting her weak body. She was light, too light, as if the cold had already taken most of her. Her hair brushed against his coat, leaving drops of melted frost. Her skin burned cold against his warmth. He looked at her one last time, then turned toward the mountains. Step by step, he carried her through the snow. The storm grew stronger, but he did not stop. Behind him, the fire died, leaving the valley in silence. The wolves did not return. The mountains only watched, holding their secrets. By the time he reached his cabin, his arms ached, his breath heavy. He kicked open the wooden door, carried her inside, and laid her near the hearth. He threw wood on the fire, the flames roaring to life. He covered her with blankets, though he doubted it would be enough. She was shaking, her lips blue, her hands frozen stiff. He did not know if she would survive the night, but he had chosen. He had broken his own rule of living alone. He had let someone in, and that choice would change everything. The girl breathed weakly, her chest rising and falling. The man sat nearby, rifle across his lap. He did not sleep. He did not move. He just watched her. Outside, the snow buried the valley deeper. The mountains listened in silence, and the second night ended, but the story had only begun. The cabin was small, built from old wood and stone, hidden deep in the mountains. For years, the human man had lived there alone. It was a place of silence, of hunting, of cold winters where only fire and will kept him alive. Now, for the first time, another heartbeat echoed inside its walls. The alien girl lay on a blanket near the fire, her breath weak but steady. Her skin no longer glowed as bright, but faint sparks of light pulsed under her skin like fading stars. Her purple hair spread across the rough cloth, wet with melted snow. The man sat nearby, his rifle leaning against the wall, his eyes never leaving her. When morning came, the storm outside grew quiet. The mountains were buried deeper in snow, but the cabin was safe. The man placed more wood in the fire, his hands rough from years of work. He looked at her again, wondering if she would ever wake. Her chest rose slowly. Then suddenly she gasped. Her eyes opened, glowing softly in the dim light. The man froze, his hand near his rifle, but the girl did not attack. She only looked around in confusion. Her gaze stopped on him, sharp, almost fearful. She tried to rise, but her weak body failed. She muttered strange words, her voice broken. The sounds meant nothing to him, but the tone was clear. She was afraid, and she did not trust him. He raised his hands slowly, showing he carried no weapon. His face remained calm, though inside his heart raced. He pointed at the fire, then at her shivering body. His message was simple: stay near the warmth. The girl stared at him, then at the fire. then back at him. Her hands glowed faintly as if ready to defend herself, but her strength was gone and she lowered them. The man left her side and went to a wooden shelf. He took bread, hard and dry, and placed it near her. She sniffed it, unsure, her glowing eyes narrowing. Slowly, she took a bite, her teeth small and sharp. She chewed, then swallowed, and her body shivered again. The taste was strange, but it gave her life. She looked at him once more, softer now, though not yet trusting. He gave her water, and she drank with trembling hands. For a moment, the silence in the cabin felt less heavy. As the day passed, the man tried to speak. He used simple words, slow and clear. "Fire," he said, pointing at the flames. "Food," he said, pointing at the bread. The girl tilted her head, her lips moving as she tried to repeat. Her voice was rough, broken, but she whispered the sounds back too. "Oh, him." The words were not perfect, but they were enough. He nodded, and for the first time she almost smiled. Her glowing eyes softened, though her body still shook with fear and exhaustion. But outside the cabin, whispers spread through the village below. The people had seen the light in the sky, they had seen the fire in the valley, and some had seen the strange man carrying a glowing figure through the snow. They called her a witch, a demon, a curse from the mountains. Fear grew in their hearts. They decided they would not allow such a thing to stay near their homes. They would find her, and they would burn the cabin if needed. Inside, the girl's strength slowly returned. At night, when the man slept in his chair, she sat awake, staring at the flames. She reached into her torn clothes and pulled out a small crystal, glowing faintly. It pulsed with light, alien symbols etched inside like frozen fire. She held it close, whispering words to it. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. The crystal was a piece of her broken portal, her only link to her world, her people, her home. But it was damaged, cracked, and she knew she could not repair it alone. The man stirred, and she hid the crystal quickly. When his eyes opened, he saw her sitting closer to the fire. Her face still looked fragile, but her spirit was strong. He studied her quietly. She was not human, but she was not a monster either. She was something else, something in between, and she was alive, needing warmth, needing food, needing trust. His heart told him he had done the right thing by bringing her here. But his mind warned him that danger was coming, and it was not just from her. The next evening, while the storm raged again, footsteps echoed outside the cabin. The man heard them first, his hand tightening on his rifle. The girl sensed them too, her glowing eyes flashing with fear. She stood, weak but alert. The sound of voices grew louder, angry, filled with suspicion. Torches flickered outside the window. The villagers had come. They shouted for the man to open the door. They shouted for him to give up the witch inside. The girl's body shook, but this time it was not from cold. It was from fear, and from the memory of fire that had once destroyed her world. The man stood between her and the door, his rifle ready, his heart torn. He had lived alone for years, avoiding others, but now their eyes were on him, demanding a choice. He looked at the girl, fragile yet strong, desperate yet alive. Her eyes met his, pleading without words, and he knew he could not betray her. The cabin walls shook with the angry voices outside. The fire burned bright, shadows dancing across the walls, and the man whispered to himself, "Then let them come." The night was alive with voices. Torches burned outside the cabin, their flames glowing through the cracks in the wooden walls. The villagers shouted, their anger louder than the storm. "Bring out the witch," they cried. "Bring out the curse," their voices echoed. The man stood inside, rifle in his hands, his jaw tight. The alien girl sat near the fire, her glowing eyes wide with fear. She looked at him as if waiting for his decision. Would he hand her over, or would he protect her? For years he had lived alone. He had avoided the weight of others, the noise of their demands. His cabin had been his shelter, his fortress against the world. Now, because of one strange girl, it was surrounded. The villagers' anger was not only for her, it was for him too. They called his name, warning him not to hide a monster. If he refused, they would burn everything. The man felt the weight of two lives on his shoulders, his own and hers. The girl tried to stand, but her legs shook. Her body was still weak, though her spirit was strong. She whispered something in her broken voice. The words were not human, but he understood the meaning. She was telling him to let her go, to give her up. She thought he had no reason to risk it. His life for her, her glowing eyes dimmed with sadness. She had known rejection before. She expected it again. But the man shook his head. He did not speak much, yet his silence carried weight. He turned from her and faced the door, his hand on the rifle, his breath slow. His heart told him the truth. He could not let the villagers take her. Not because she was powerful, not because she was different, but because she was alive, and she deserved the chance to keep living. For the first time in years, he felt something human stirring in him again, compassion. The villagers outside grew louder. Some threw stones at the walls, others struck the door. The man's cabin shook under the force. The girl clutched the blanket, her whole body trembling. The fire cracked, sparks flying into the air. The man spoke then, his voice low but firm. "You will not take her." No one inside the cabin understood his words except himself, but the mountains seemed to hear, and the storm outside howled louder, as if echoing his choice. Suddenly the girl rose, her weak legs holding her steady for a moment. She pulled the crystal from her torn clothes. It glowed softly, casting strange light on the cabin walls. She pointed at the door, then at him. Her lips moved, whispering sounds that almost shaped into human words. "Go. Run," she said, broken but clear. Her voice cracked, her body shaking. She wanted him to escape, to save himself. She was willing to be left behind. The man's chest tightened, but he shook his head again. "No," he whispered, though she could not understand. He stepped closer, his shadow long in the firelight. If she would face the world, he would face it with her. The banging on the door grew harder. The wood began to crack. Torches lit the night outside, the glow of fire creeping through the windows. The villagers were ready to burn everything. The girl looked at the man again, and for the first time, trust filled her eyes. She pressed the crystal into his hands, her glowing fingers. Brushing his rough skin, he felt its strange heat, the pulse of something alive inside it. She pointed to the mountains, her voice weak. The broken portal lay there, buried in snow. He understood then, if they could reach it, maybe she could fix it, maybe they could escape together. The man nodded once, a decision made. He grabbed a bag, stuffed it with bread and bullets. He wrapped her in his thickest coat, though it barely covered her strange form. Then he kicked the back door open, snow blowing inside. The storm welcomed them with icy arms. The villagers did not see them slip into the dark. Their voices still roared at the front, demanding fire. But the man and the girl vanished into the night, leaving the cabin behind. They stumbled through the snow, the man holding her close. The mountains rose around them like giants. The wind cut their faces, but they pushed forward. The girl's crystal glowed faintly in the dark, guiding them like a star. Every step was heavy, every breath sharp. But the man did not stop. Behind them, smoke rose into the sky. The villagers had set fire to his cabin. The home he had built for years was gone. But he did not look back. He only looked forward, toward the mountains and the secret they held. When they finally stopped to rest, the girl leaned against him, her breath shallow. She whispered again, her voice almost human this time. "Help me fix." The words were broken, but clear enough. The man nodded slowly. His choice had been made. He had given up his shelter, his safety, his old life. Now his path was tied to hers. The storm raged on, but inside his chest, a fire had been lit. The fire of a choice that could not be undone. The mountains burned with fire behind them. The man's cabin, his only home, was now only flames and smoke. The villagers cheered in the distance, their torches bright in the night. They believed they had destroyed the witch and the man who sheltered her. But the truth was different. The man and the alien girl were already far away, swallowed by the storm. The snowstorm howled, pushing against them with icy claws. The man held the girl close, carrying her when her legs failed. Her crystal glowed faintly, guiding them toward the broken portal. The girl's breath came in weak gasps, her glowing eyes dim. She whispered strange words to the crystal, but it only flickered. It needed more power, more life, and she did not have enough strength. The man felt her shiver in his arms, but he kept walking. His boots sank deep into the snow, but he pressed forward. Every step was heavy, but his will was stronger than the mountain. Behind them, the sound of voices grew. The villagers had discovered the cabin empty. They realized the man and the girl had escaped. Now they followed with dogs and torches, their anger hotter than the storm. The man heard the distant howls of the hounds. He knew they would not stop until they found them. He tightened his grip on his rifle. If they came too close, he would fight. But he also knew he could not fight them all. The girl stirred weakly, her voice soft. She pointed toward the mountain ridge, her hand trembling. The broken portal was there, hidden under ice and stone. Her crystal pulsed brighter when she faced that direction. The man nodded and quickened his steps. The storm cut his face, but he leaned into it. The world around them was endless white, but his eyes were fixed on the ridge ahead. When they reached a small cave, he set her down gently. She leaned against the stone wall, her breath uneven. Her fingers clutched the crystal tightly. "I," whispering words to it. For a moment, the glow grew stronger. Symbols of light danced inside the crystal, like stars trapped in glass. The man watched, confused but also in awe. She was weak, fragile, yet there was power in her, power older than anything he had seen, but the light faded again, leaving her trembling. She lowered her head, ashamed of her weakness. The man knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone," he whispered, though she could not understand, yet somehow she felt the meaning. Her eyes softened, a spark of hope returning. Then the sound of dogs broke the moment. The man grabbed his rifle and looked toward the snowy path. Torches glowed in the distance, moving closer. The villagers had found their trail. The girl tried to stand, but her body shook violently. The man held her arm, steadying her. They had no time left. If the villagers caught them here, there would be no escape. He lifted her again, carrying her deeper into the storm. The cave ended, opening onto a steep slope. Below, the valley stretched wide, white and silent, and beyond it, half buried in snow and rock, the broken portal stood. Its frame twisted, but still alive with faint sparks of alien light. The girl gasped, her glowing eyes wide with hope. She pointed, whispering a single broken word. "Home." The man began to climb down, his boots slipping on the ice. Snow crashed around them, his body straining under her weight. The voices behind grew louder, the dogs barking closer. A torch flew through the air, landing in the snow behind them. The fire hissed and died, but the message was clear. The villagers were near. The man gritted his teeth and pushed harder. His breath burned, but he did not stop. The portal was only a short distance away. If they could reach it, maybe they could survive. At last they reached the frozen valley floor. The portal loomed above them, a broken giant. Its edges glowed faintly, like embers buried in ash. The girl slid from his arms, falling to her knees. She pressed the crystal into the frame, her hands glowing faintly. Strange symbols lit up across the metal. For a moment, the portal hummed with life. The wind around them shifted, pulling toward its center. The man's eyes widened. It was working, even if only for a moment. But then the torches appeared at the ridge. The villagers shouted, their voices sharp and angry. The dogs barked, pulling their masters closer. The girl cried out, her hands pressing harder on the crystal. Her strength was almost gone, her body shaking. The portal flickered, light bursting and then fading again. She whispered in her broken voice, "Help me finish." Her glowing eyes turned to him, desperate. The man looked at the villagers coming closer, then back at her, and in that moment his choice was clear. He placed his hands over hers on the crystal. It burned against his skin, but he did not let go. Light flared, brighter than before. The symbols danced, alive with fire and power. The girl gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Together, human and alien poured their strength into the broken frame. The portal roared, the air trembling. The villagers stopped, fear creeping into their voices. The dogs whined and pulled back. The fire of their torches looked small against the light of the portal. The man's arms shook, his body strained, but he held on, refusing to let go. The girl whispered one last time, "Almost." The portal blazed, filling the valley with light. Snow flew into the air, the storm silenced, and for the first time, the doorway between worlds opened again. But what waited on the other side was still unknown. The valley glowed with the strange light of the portal. The villagers froze on the ridge, their torches small against the fire that filled the sky. The dogs whimpered, their growls fading. Some villagers dropped their weapons, others shouted in fear, but none of them dared to come closer. They had seen something that no human eyes were meant to see. The man and the alien girl knelt at the base of the portal, their hands still pressed against the crystal, their bodies trembling with exhaustion. The portal hummed like a great beast waking from sleep. Its frame shook, sparks of blue fire dancing across the snow. Then suddenly the light dimmed, the humming faded. The doorway closed once more, leaving only silence. The girl collapsed, her body limp in the snow. The man caught her quickly, pulling her close. Her eyes opened weakly, glowing faintly in the dark. She whispered in her broken voice, "Not enough." Then her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. The man lifted her again, holding her against his chest. The villagers had not moved from the ridge. They whispered among themselves, fear stronger than anger now. The man turned away, carrying her into the mountains once more. He did not stop until they found another cave, hidden by rocks and snow. Inside, he laid her down gently near a small fire he built. The flames flickered, warm but weak. The girl's hands clutched the crystal even in her sleep. It pulsed with dim light, like a heart still beating. Days passed in silence. The storm outside raged, hiding them from the world. The villagers no longer searched. Fear had kept them away from the glowing portal and the cursed valley. Inside the cave, the man and the girl began to share something more than survival, a bond that neither of them had expected. The girl grew stronger slowly. Every day she tried to speak more words. "Fire," she whispered, pointing to the flames. "Food," she said, when he gave her bread. Her tongue stumbled, her voice soft. But she learned quickly. The man nodded each time, patient, steady. He taught her with gestures, showing her the meaning of words. She listened carefully, her glowing eyes watching his every move. When she made mistakes, he did not laugh. He simply repeated the word until she spoke it right. She smiled then, her first real smile since falling from the sky. In return, she taught him as well. When the fire burned low, she drew symbols in the snow, strange glowing marks that pulsed faintly. She showed him how each symbol carried meaning. He could not speak her language, but he began to understand her world. She drew the shape of a great city, tall towers shining under alien stars. She drew fire raining from the sky, destroying it. She drew humans, not like him, but soldiers with machines and fire. The man's heart grew heavy as he watched. Her world had been destroyed, not by her people, but by his. She touched her chest, then touched his, her glowing eyes filled with sadness, but also with trust. She was telling him that she did not blame him, that he was different, that he had given her something she thought she had lost forever. Kindness. Nights were long in the mountains. They sat by the fire, silent but not alone. The man would sharpen his rifle, his eyes fixed on the entrance of the cave. The girl would hold the crystal close, whispering to it softly. Sometimes she leaned against his arm, tired. He did not move, but his heart warmed. He had lived so many winters in silence. Now for the first time he did not feel empty, but danger was never far. One night, when the wind was still, the girl's crystal pulsed brighter. She sat up quickly, her glowing eyes wide. The man looked at her, his hand on his rifle. "What is it?" he asked softly, though she did not understand the words. She pointed to the mouth of the cave, her body tense. The crystal glowed stronger, humming faintly. The man stepped outside, his eyes scanning the snow. The mountains were silent, the valley below empty. Then he saw it, shadows moving near the broken portal, not villagers, not wolves. Something else. He returned quickly, his face grim. The girl's eyes filled with fear when she saw him. She whispered one word, broken but clear: hunters. The man understood without needing more. They were not safe, not yet. The portal had called more than just light. It had called those who had chased her from her world, and now they had found her again. The girl clutched his sleeve, her glowing eyes desperate. "Fix. Soon," she whispered, pointing at the crystal. Her hand shook, her body weak. The man placed his hand over hers, steadying her. He nodded slowly. They had little time, but they had something stronger than fear. They had each other. And in the dark cave, with the storm outside and the hunters closing in, the bond between a human and an alien burned brighter than the fire, a bond that could not be broken. Not by fear, not by cold, not even by the threat of war. The cave was silent, but outside, the night was not. The hunters had come, their shapes moving like shadows across the snow. They were taller than men, armored in strange dark metal that shimmered under the moon. Their weapons glowed with faint fire, humming with deadly power. They searched the valley, their voices sharp, their language strange. The girl trembled, clutching the crystal to her chest, her glowing eyes filled with fear. "They found me," she whispered. The man's jaw tightened, his hand gripping his rifle. He had fought wolves, storms, and hunger before. But these were not wolves, and this was not hunger. This was war. The girl pressed her forehead against the crystal, whispering words in her alien tongue. The crystal pulsed brighter, sparks running through the cracks, but the portal was still broken. It needed more time, more strength, time they did not have. The hunters moved closer, their steps heavy in the snow. One raised his weapon, pointing toward the cave. The man's heart pounded. He knew what they wanted. They had not crossed worlds for nothing. They wanted her, and they would kill anyone who stood in their way. The girl looked at him, her glowing eyes pleading. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. She shook her head, whispering broken words. "No, stay. Safe." She wanted him to run, to leave her, but he did not move. He looked at her, then at the cave mouth, then at the shadows outside. For years he had lived alone, avoiding people, avoiding pain. Now, in this frozen world, he had found someone worth fighting for, and he would not let her be taken. The hunters stepped into view, their weapons glowing brighter. The man raised his rifle, his breath slow and steady. He knew he could not win, but that did not matter. What mattered was standing. What mattered was showing them that a human's will could not be broken. The girl whispered behind him, her voice filled with fear and sorrow. "Why?" she asked softly. The man did not turn, his eyes locked on the hunters. "Because no one should fight alone," he said, though she barely understood. But she felt the meaning, and tears filled her glowing eyes. The first shot rang out. The man fired, the sound echoing through the mountains. A hunter staggered back, its armor sparking, but more came, their weapons blazing. Bolts of fire struck the cave walls, stone exploding. The man kept firing, each shot sharp and sure. His rifle roared until the chamber clicked empty. Still, he stood, refusing to move. The hunters advanced, their voices cold. The girl screamed, pressing the crystal into the ground, her hands glowing brighter than ever before. The crystal pulsed, cracks spreading across its surface. Light poured out, flooding the cave. Symbols danced on the walls, glowing like fire. The hunters hesitated, their steps faltering. The girl cried out, her voice rising above the storm outside. Her alien words filled the cave. The crystal shattered in her hands, and the broken portal roared to life. A blazing doorway of light opened, filling the valley with power. The hunters turned, their weapons raised. But the man did not step back. He charged, swinging his rifle like a club. He struck one hunter, knocking it off balance. Another fired, but the blast struck the cave wall, snow and rock falling. The girl reached out, her glowing hands pulling him back. "Come," she cried, but he shook his head. He looked at her one last time, and she understood. He was not leaving, not now, not ever. The hunters rushed forward, their shadows filling the cave. The man stood tall, his face calm, his eyes burning with fire. He shouted once, his voice echoing like thunder. "Not today." And he fought. Every strike, every breath, every heartbeat, he gave it all. The girl screamed, her tears glowing as they fell. The portal blazed behind her, pulling at the air. She knew what he had chosen. He had chosen her life over his own. The last thing she saw before the light consumed her was his figure, a lone human standing against giants, a rifle in his hands, fire in his eyes, and then the portal pulled her through. The world spun, light and shadow tearing apart. Her body hit the ground on the other side. Her chest heaved, her eyes wide. She turned back, but the portal was already closing. His voice echoed faintly, "Live." And then it was gone. The girl knelt in the snow of a new world, her hands clutching the broken pieces of the crystal, her glowing eyes filled with tears. The sky above her was strange, filled with stars she had never seen, but in her heart burned a memory. Not of fear, not of loss, but of courage. On the fourth night, when she had nothing left, one human had let her in, and that choice had changed two worlds forever.